The drums were already beating when Ariella pressed her forehead against the cold stone wall of the servants' quarters, feeling every pulse like a hammer against her ribs. Tonight, under the full blood moon, every unmated wolf in the Moonfang pack would find their destined mate. Every wolf except her, because she wasn't one. Not really. Human-born. Wolf-raised. Forever caught between two worlds that both refused to claim her. The ceremony had started an hour ago. Ariella could hear everything from her exile, the chanting of the elders, the howls of recognition as bonds snapped into place, the gasps and cheers as wolves found their fated mates under the ancient oaks. She wasn't allowed within 50 feet of the sacred clearing. Elder Morna had made that abundantly clear this morning. "You'll taint the ceremony with your presence," the old wolf had hissed, her yellow eyes gleaming with disgust. "The moon goddess doesn't make mistakes, girl. If you were meant to have a mate, you'd have been born with a wolf." Ariella had nodded, swallowed the humiliation like she always did, and retreated to the shadows where she belonged. But now, alone in the darkness with only the distant drums for company, something felt wrong. Deeply, viscerally wrong. Her chest ached, had been aching for weeks now, if she was honest with herself. A hollow, gnawing sensation that intensified whenever he was near. Alpha King Darius Blackthorn. The most powerful shifter in 5 territories. The wolf who had barely looked at her in the 22 years she'd lived in his pack. The wolf who was supposed to accept his chosen mate tonight. Luna Serafina Nightshade, daughter of the Northern Alpha, bred for royalty, perfect in every way. Ariella's fingers dug into the stone wall as another wave of that wrongness crashed through her. It felt like something was being torn from her chest, slowly, agonizingly. Like invisible claws were shredding her from the inside out. What is happening to me? She shouldn't care about the ceremony. She shouldn't care about Darius taking a mate. She'd spent her entire life being invisible to him, to all of them. The human girl the late Alpha had brought home one winter night, wrapped in blood-stained blankets, with no memory of where she'd come from. They'd raised her out of duty, nothing more. But the pain was getting worse. Welcome back to the channel, or if you're new here, welcome to the pack. I'm so glad you're here with me tonight for this story. Drop a comment and let me know where you're watching from. And hey, if you haven't subscribed yet, do me a favor and hit that button right now. You're about to go on an emotional roller coaster, and trust me, you'll want to come back for more. Now let's dive in, because this story? It's going to wreck you in the best way possible. Ariella stumbled away from the wall, her breath coming in short gasps. The drums had changed rhythm, faster now, more intense. They were reaching the final vows. The moment when the Alpha King would seal his bond with Serafina and solidify the alliance that would make the Moonfang pack unstoppable. She needed to get further away. If she could just reach the forest edge, maybe the distance would help. Maybe. A howl shattered the night. Not a ceremonial howl. Not a joyful one. It was rage. Pure, primal rage that made every window in the compound rattle and sent birds exploding from the trees in terrified clouds. Ariella's legs gave out. She crashed to her knees in the dirt, clutching her chest as that invisible tearing sensation became unbearable. The howl was still echoing through the mountains, and she realized with dawning horror that she felt it. Not just heard it, felt it resonating in her bones, in her blood, in parts of her that shouldn't exist. Shouts erupted from the ceremony clearing. Confusion. Panic. The drums had stopped. "Get back here," someone roared, Elder Thorn's voice. "You can't just." Enough. The word cracked like thunder, and Ariella's entire body went rigid with recognition. She knew that voice. Had heard it in 1,000 pack meetings, issuing orders, dispensing justice, commanding armies. Alpha King Darius. But she'd never heard him sound like this. Feral. Barely human. On the edge of something catastrophic. Where is she? His voice carried across the compound, and Ariella's heart stopped. Where is she? Footsteps. Running. Dozens of wolves racing through the compound, and she realized with cold terror that they were looking for someone. Looking for her. The human girl? Elder Morna's shrill voice. My king, she's not part of this ceremony. She was ordered to. I don't care what she was ordered to do. Each word was clipped, controlled, but underneath was a violence that made Ariella's hands shake. Her scent is everywhere. It's been driving my wolf insane for weeks. And tonight, his voice broke off into something between a growl and a laugh that held no humor. Tonight I finally understand why. Silence. The kind of silence that precedes earthquakes. That's impossible, Elder Thorn said carefully. The girl has no wolf. She cannot be. She's my mate. Darius roared, and Ariella's world tilted sideways. The bond, it's been there all along. Suppressed. Hidden. But tonight, when I tried to accept Seraphina, when I tried to seal a bond that was never mine to seal. He didn't finish. Didn't need to. Ariella was still on her knees in the dirt, trembling, when she heard him inhale sharply. Even from this distance, she knew he'd caught her scent. Knew he was tracking her with senses that had been honed through centuries of Blackthorn bloodline. Ariella. Her name on his lips was a command and a plea. I know you can hear me. She couldn't move. Couldn't breathe. This had to be a nightmare. Had to be some cruel joke the moon goddess was playing because Ariella had dared to want things she had no right to want. Come out, Darius said, and his voice had dropped to something softer but infinitely more dangerous. Come out, or I will tear this entire compound apart until I find you. It wasn't an empty threat. She could hear his wolf in every word, could feel the barely leashed violence that promised he meant every syllable. Ariella forced herself to stand on shaking legs. She stepped out from behind the servants' quarters, into the moonlight, and watched as 300 wolves turned to stare at her. The ceremony clearing was in chaos. Mated pairs stood frozen, half-transformed. The elders' faces were masks of shock and fury. And there, in the center of the sacred circle, stood Darius Blackthorn. 6.5 feet of lethal predator wrapped in human skin. Black hair falling into eyes that had gone completely wolf, golden, burning, fixed on her with an intensity that made her knees weak. He'd partially shifted, claws extending from his fingertips, fangs visible even from this distance, his massive frame trembling with barely contained power. And beside him, beautiful and furious in her ceremonial white gown, stood Seraphina. The woman who was supposed to be his mate. The woman who was staring at Ariella with murder in her crystalline blue eyes. Impossible, Seraphina whispered. She's human. She can't be. She's mine. Darius's eyes never left Ariella as he spoke. Every instinct in my body is screaming it. Every fiber of my wolf knows it. He took a step forward, and the crowd parted like water before him. How long, Ariella? How long have you felt it? She couldn't answer. Her throat had closed completely. Because the truth was devastating and simple, she'd felt something for him since the moment she was old enough to understand what longing meant. Had dismissed it as childish fantasy, as the pathetic dreams of a girl who would never be enough. But now, standing in the moonlight with his wolf calling to something inside her that had no right to exist. Now she felt it. The bond. A golden thread stretching between them, pulling tighter with every second. It was agony and ecstasy wrapped together, and she didn't understand how she'd lived her entire life without recognizing it. The prophecy, Elder Morna breathed, and the horror in her voice made several wolves step back. Great Moon Goddess, the prophecy was true. Darius's head snapped toward the elder. What prophecy? But Morna was staring at Ariella now, and there was fear in her ancient eyes. real, bone-deep terror. The night the old alpha brought her here, he made us swear. Made us bind her wolf, suppress her bond. He said if the future alpha ever claimed her as mate, it would bring ruin to everything we've built. The words hung in the air like poison. Ariella watched Darius process this information, watched emotions flicker across his face too fast to catalog. Betrayal. Fury. Confusion. And underneath it all, a hunger that made her body respond in ways she didn't understand. You suppressed her wolf? His voice had gone deadly quiet. You've been torturing my mate for 22 years because of a prophecy? To protect the pack, Elder Thorn said firmly. To protect you, my king. The prophecy stated that if you bonded with the girl. I don't give a damn about prophecies. Darius's power exploded outward, forcing every wolf in the clearing to their knees. Everyone except Ariella, who remained standing, shaking, watching the Alpha King lose control. You stole her wolf. You stole our bond. You made her believe she was nothing when she's, he choked on the words, his chest heaving. When she's everything. Ariella's vision blurred with tears she refused to let fall. This wasn't happening. Couldn't be happening. Darius, Seraphina's voice cut through the chaos, sharp and cold. Think about what you're doing. If you reject me now, you'll destroy the Alliance. The Northern Territories will. Let them burn, he said flatly, and turned his back on her. He was walking toward Ariella now, closing the distance between them with predatory grace. The crowd had fallen silent again, watching, waiting to see what would happen when the most powerful alpha in generations reached the human girl who apparently wasn't human at all. Ariella wanted to run. Wanted to disappear. But her body wouldn't obey, because part of her, some deep, primal part she'd never acknowledged, was screaming at her to stay. To submit. To let this magnificent predator claim what was apparently his. Don't be afraid, Darius said softly when he was close enough that she could see the gold flecks in his wolf eyes. I won't hurt you, Ariella. I could never hurt you. You've been hurting me for 22 years, she whispered, and watched him flinch like she'd struck him. Every day I've lived in your pack, invisible and unwanted. Every time you looked through me like I didn't exist. That was hurting me. I didn't know. Does that make it better? She was shaking harder now, from shock or fury or the overwhelming pull of the bond, she couldn't tell. You're saying you're my mate, but you couldn't even see me until tonight. Until some ceremony forced you to acknowledge I exist. That's not, he reached for her, and she stumbled back. Don't touch me. His hand dropped, and the devastation on his face was almost enough to break her resolve. Almost. I need you to listen, he said urgently. The bond was suppressed, Ariella. For both of us. I felt something around you, always, but I couldn't identify it. They made sure I couldn't. Made sure we both stayed in the dark. His voice dropped to a growl. But tonight, when I tried to force a bond with Seraphina, tried to override what the moon goddess had already decided, it broke something. Shattered whatever spell or binding they'd placed on us. So what happens now? She hated how small her voice sounded. You expect me to just accept this? Accept you? I expect you to let me make this right. He took a careful step closer, and this time she didn't retreat. I expect you to give me a chance to prove that you're not invisible. That you've never been unwanted. That every moment I spent not seeing you was a crime against the moon goddess herself. Behind him, the pack was stirring. Murmurs of shock, of anger, of confusion rippling through the crowd. Seraphina was crying now, furious, humiliated tears that made Ariella feel a sharp stab of guilt she had no right to feel. The prophecy, Elder Morna started. I don't care. Darius didn't turn around, didn't take his eyes off Ariella. If claiming my true mate brings ruin, then let it come. But I won't spend another day living a lie. I won't spend another day with her believing she's worthless when she's worth more than every territory combined. Ariella's breath caught. Because she could feel it now, really feel it. The bond pulsing between them, golden and fierce, demanding to be acknowledged. It was terrifying and exhilarating and completely overwhelming. I don't have a wolf, she said desperately, grasping for any reason to make this stop. I can't be your Luna. I can't give you. You have a wolf. His certainty was absolute. They bound her, but she's there. I can feel her. And when we break those bindings, when we free her, his eyes flashed molten gold. You're going to be the most powerful Luna this pack has ever known. You don't know that. I know you. He did touch her then, just his fingertips against her cheek, and the contact sent lightning through her veins. I know that for 22 years, you've survived in a pack that rejected you. You've endured humiliation and isolation, and you're still standing. Still strong. That's not human resilience, Ariella. That's wolf. She was crying now, couldn't stop the tears even though she hated showing weakness. Because part of her, the part that had been screaming in silence for so long, wanted desperately to believe him. What if the prophecy is real, she whispered. What if claiming me really does destroy everything? Darius leaned in until his forehead rested against hers, until she could feel the heat radiating off his skin, until the bond between them was screaming so loudly she could barely hear anything else. Then we'll burn together, he said. And I'll count myself blessed for every moment I get to stand beside you in the flames. The silence that followed Darius's declaration was suffocating. Ariella pulled back from his touch, her mind spinning. 22 years of being nothing, and now she was supposedly everything? The bond hummed between them, undeniable, but her heart was a war zone of disbelief and desperate hope. My king, Elder Thorn's voice cut through the tension like a blade. You cannot make this decision in haste. The girl must be tested. The prophecy must be. The prophecy, Darius said coldly, finally turning to face his counsel, is 22 years old and has already caused enough damage. You will tell me everything. Now. Or I will remove every elder who had a hand in hiding my mate from me. It wasn't a threat. It was a promise, delivered with the absolute authority of an alpha who had just discovered betrayal in his own ranks. Ariella's legs finally gave out. She sank onto a nearby stone bench, her whole body trembling. This couldn't be real. Any moment she'd wake up in her narrow cot in the servants' quarters, and this would all be a fever dream brought on by listening to the ceremony from afar. But then a gentle hand touched her shoulder, and she looked up into warm brown eyes. Breathe, honey, said a soft voice. Just breathe. Maya. One of the pack's healers and one of the few wolves who'd ever shown Ariella genuine kindness. She was petite, with silver-streaked auburn hair and a face that radiated maternal warmth. She'd been the one to bandage Ariella's scraped knees as a child, to sneak her extra food when the others forgot to feed her, to smile at her when everyone else looked through her. Maya, what's happening? Ariella whispered. Is this real? As real as the moon above us. Maya squeezed her shoulder. I always suspected, you know. The way you'd go pale whenever the alpha was near. The way you'd disappear for days after pack meetings. I thought it was fear, but now, she smiled sadly. Now I understand it was the bond trying to surface through whatever they'd done to suppress it. But I don't understand why. Why would they? Because your father was terrified of you. Ariella's head snapped up. My father? The old alpha. Darius's father. Maya's voice dropped to barely a whisper. He never told anyone where he found you, Ariella. Just showed up one winter night with a baby wrapped in blood-stained blankets, claimed he was honoring a debt, and demanded we raise you. But I was there when he met with the elders that night. I heard things I wasn't supposed to hear. Ariella's heart was pounding. What things? Maya glanced over at where Darius was still confronting the elders, his power radiating outward in waves that made even the strongest warriors step back. He said you were born under a blood moon. That your mother was something other. Not quite wolf, not quite witch, but something in between. And that a seer had told him if his son ever bonded with you, it would awaken power that could either unite all shifter clans under one banner, or destroy them completely, Ariella finished numbly. The prophecy. Of course it was about power. It was always about power. He was afraid, sweetheart. Afraid of what you might become. So he made the elders bind your wolf before she could even surface. Made them suppress the mate bond so completely that neither you nor Darius would ever recognize it. Maya's eyes were bright with unshed tears. He stole your birthright to protect his son. And in doing so, he condemned you both to this half-life. Ariella looked across the clearing at Darius. He was magnificent in his rage, a born leader, powerful and commanding. She'd watched him from the shadows for years, had seen him train warriors, settle disputes, make decisions that affected thousands of lives. He was everything an alpha should be. And apparently, he was hers. The thought was intoxicating and terrifying in equal measure. I don't know how to be what he needs, she said quietly. I don't know how to be a Luna. I can't even shift. Yet, Maya corrected gently. You can't shift yet. But that doesn't mean you're weak, Ariella. Do you know how many unmated males have tried to intimidate you over the years? How many warriors have deliberately invaded your space, testing to see if you'd submit? Ariella frowned. She remembered those encounters, had always assumed they were just bullying. You never submitted, Maya continued. Not once. You'd stand your ground, meet their eyes, and they'd back down. Every single time. That's not human behavior, honey. Humans can't face down aggressive werewolves and win. But you did. Because your wolf was there, buried deep, protecting you even when she couldn't surface. The words settled into Ariella's chest, and for the first time in her life, she felt a flicker of something that might have been pride. The alpha is coming back, Maya warned softly. And sweetheart? Whatever you decide, whether you accept him or reject him, make sure it's your choice. You've had enough people making decisions for you. Then she was gone, melting back into the crowd with the practiced ease of someone who knew how to be invisible when necessary. Darius approached slowly, his wolf eyes fading back to their normal stormy gray. He moved with lethal grace, every inch the predator, but there was something almost vulnerable in his expression. Like he was afraid she'd run if he came too close. The elders have confirmed everything, he said quietly, stopping a respectful distance away. The binding spell. The suppressed bond. All of it. His jaw clenched. My father did this. And the current council maintained it even after his death because they were too cowardly to tell me the truth. What happens now? Ariella asked. It seemed to be her only question tonight. Now you choose. Darius held her gaze steadily. I won't force this bond on you, Ariella. The moon goddess may have made us mates, but you've earned the right to decide your own fate. If you want to reject me, reject this, I'll accept it. I'll find a way to break the bond cleanly so you can be free. Free to do what? The question came out harsher than she intended. Free to remain the pack outcast? Free to spend the rest of my life as a human among wolves, never truly belonging anywhere? Free to leave, he said simply. I'll give you resources, protection, passage to human territories where you can build whatever life you want. Away from all of this. It was a genuine offer. She could see it in his eyes. If she asked, he would let her go. Would set her free even though it would destroy him. The bond pulsed between them, and Ariella realized with startling clarity that rejecting it would destroy her too. "I don't want to leave," she said slowly, testing the words. "But I don't want to be claimed just because of fate either. I don't want to be another duty you fulfill." Something fierce and possessive flashed across Darius's face. "Trust me, Aria, duty is the last thing I feel for you." The unfamiliar words sent shivers down her spine. "What does that mean?" "Aria?" "My treasure," he translated, his voice rough. "In the old tongue. It's what an alpha calls his mate when she's—" He stopped, seeming to struggle for words. "When she's everything." Ariella stood, forcing her legs to hold steady. She walked toward him, watching his entire body go rigid with anticipation. When she was close enough to feel the heat radiating off his skin, close enough that the bond was screaming for her to touch him, she stopped. "I want the binding broken," she said firmly. "I want my wolf freed." And then, she lifted her chin, meeting his eyes with a courage she didn't know she possessed. "Then I'll decide if you're worthy of me." For a heartbeat, Darius just stared at her. Then he smiled, a real smile that transformed his entire face, making him look younger, almost boyish. "Challenge accepted, Aria." He reached out slowly, giving her time to pull away, and tucked a strand of hair behind her ear. "I'll spend every day proving I deserve you." The touch was electric, and Ariella had to fight not to lean into it. Behind them, Serafina let out a choked sob and fled the clearing. Several northern wolves followed, their expressions dark with fury. Ariella felt a stab of guilt, but Darius seemed entirely unbothered. "Elder Thorn," he called out, his voice carrying the weight of command. "Summon the Pack Witch. We break the binding tonight." The Pack Witch arrived within minutes, and Ariella's stomach dropped when she saw who it was. Kira Ashenblade was a legend whispered about in the shadows, a wolf witch hybrid with silver eyes that saw too much and a reputation for brutal honesty. She was ancient, though she appeared no older than 40, with long black hair streaked with silver and intricate tattoos covering her arms that seemed to move in the moonlight. She took one look at Ariella and laughed, a sound like wind chimes in a graveyard. "Well, well. The hidden princess finally steps into the light." Kira circled Ariella slowly, assessing. "I wondered when someone would be foolish enough or brave enough to break the old alpha's binding. Nasty piece of work, that spell. Blood magic, bone deep, woven by 3 elders and sealed with a sacrifice." "What kind of sacrifice?" Darius's voice had gone deadly quiet. Kira's silver eyes gleamed. "The old alpha's own wolf, partially. He tethered a piece of his power to the binding to make sure it would hold even after his death. Clever, really. Monstrous, but clever." She stopped in front of Ariella, tilting her head. "He must have been truly terrified of what you'd become, little one." "Can you break it?" Ariella asked, hating how her voice shook. "Oh, I can break it." Kira's smile was sharp as broken glass. "But you won't like the cost." Darius stepped forward immediately. "Name it." "Whatever the price." "Not your price to pay, Alpha King." Kira cut him off with a wave of her tattooed hand. "The binding is wrapped around her soul. Only she can unravel it, and doing so will require her to face what lies beneath." She looked at Ariella with something that might have been sympathy. "Your wolf has been caged for 22 years, girl. She's going to be wild. Furious. Possibly feral. When I break this binding, you'll have to fight for control, and there's no guarantee you'll win." The clearing had gone silent. Every wolf present was watching, waiting to see if the human girl would break under the weight of what was being asked of her. Ariella's hands clenched into fists. "What happens if I lose control? Best case? You shift and rampage through the compound until exhaustion forces you back to human form." Kira's expression was grave. "Worst case?" Your wolf is so damaged by years of suppression that she takes over completely, and you're lost inside your own mind forever. Absolutely not. Darius's voice cracked like thunder. There has to be another way. Something safer. There isn't. Ariella surprised herself with how calm she sounded. She looked at Darius, saw the fear in his eyes, fear for her, and felt the bond pulse with warmth. I've lived 22 years as half of what I'm supposed to be. I won't live another day like this. Ariella. I'm doing this. She turned to Kira, lifting her chin. What do I need to do? Kira's smile was approving. Brave little wolf. Come. We'll need space, and everyone else needs to back away. If she does lose control, she'll target the nearest threats first. I'm not leaving her, Darius said flatly. Then you're a fool. Kira began drawing symbols in the dirt with her staff, complex patterns that glowed faint silver. Her wolf will see you as either mate or rival, Alpha King. If she perceives you as a threat to her freedom, she'll try to kill you. Let her try. Darius moved to stand beside Ariella, and despite everything, she felt safer with him there. I'm not going anywhere. Kira sighed but didn't argue further. She gestured for Ariella to step into the center of the glowing circle. Strip down to your undergarments. The shift will shred anything else, and you'll want something left when you turn back. Ariella's cheeks flamed. The entire pack was watching. 300 pairs of eyes, all focused on her. But Maya was suddenly there, holding up a blanket to give her some privacy, helping her remove her worn dress with gentle hands. You can do this, Maya whispered. I believe in you. Then Ariella was standing in the center of the circle in nothing but her thin cotton undergarments, feeling more exposed than she'd ever felt in her life. But when she met Darius's gaze, there was nothing but awe and fierce pride in his eyes. You're magnificent, he said quietly, and the bond thrummed with his sincerity. Kira began to chant in a language Ariella didn't recognize, something old and primal that made the air itself vibrate. The symbols on the ground glowed brighter, and Ariella felt something shift deep inside her chest. Pain exploded through her body. She screamed, dropping to her knees as agony unlike anything she'd ever experienced tore through her. It felt like someone was ripping her apart from the inside, shredding through muscle and bone and soul to reach something buried impossibly deep. Fight through it. Kira's voice seemed to come from very far away. The binding is breaking, your wolf is waking, you have to reach for her. Ariella couldn't breathe. Couldn't think. The pain was everywhere, and underneath it she could feel something stirring. Something massive and furious that had been caged for far too long. Let me out, a voice snarled in her mind, feral, desperate, enraged. Let me out. Her wolf. Her other half. And she was absolutely terrified. Ariella, stay with me. Darius's voice cut through the chaos. She felt his hand grip hers, felt the bond flare between them like a lifeline. You're stronger than this. Stronger than the fear. I've got you, we've got you, just hold on. The pain intensified, reaching a crescendo that blacked out her vision. She was dimly aware of screaming again, of her body convulsing, of bones beginning to crack and reform in ways that shouldn't be possible. And then something inside her snapped. Power flooded through her, raw, untamed, absolutely overwhelming. Her wolf surged forward with a howl of pure triumph, and Ariella felt herself being pushed back, felt her consciousness shrinking as something else took control. No, she thought desperately. No, I won't lose myself. But her wolf was too strong, too wild, too desperate for freedom after 22 years of darkness. The last thing Ariella heard before the shift took her completely was Kira's voice, sharp with alarm, Alpha King, get back. She's going to. Then there was only the wolf. Darius watched in horror and awe as Ariella's body contorted, bones breaking and reforming, skin rippling as fur erupted across her flesh. The shift was violent, uncontrolled, nothing like the smooth transformations of trained wolves. When it was complete, the creature standing in the circle made his breath catch. She was massive, easily the size of his own wolf, which shouldn't be possible for a first shift. Her fur was pure white, luminescent in the moonlight, with strange silver markings along her spine that looked almost like the tattoos on Kira's arms. Her eyes were the most shocking, one amber, one silver, both blazing with feral intelligence and rage. She was the most beautiful thing he'd ever seen. She was also clearly out of control. The white wolf's lips peeled back, revealing fangs that could tear through steel. A growl rumbled from her chest, low, threatening, promising violence. Her mismatched eyes locked onto Darius, and he saw the moment she decided he was a threat. She lunged. Darius shifted instantly, his own transformation seamless from years of practice. His black wolf met her charge head-on, and they collided with enough force to crack the earth beneath them. She was strong, impossibly strong, and fighting with the desperate fury of something that had been caged too long. She went for his throat immediately, no strategy, just pure killing instinct. Darius dodged, using his superior experience to avoid her attacks while trying not to hurt her. But she was relentless, and with each passing second she was getting faster, more coordinated, as if her wolf was remembering how to fight. Ariella, he sent through the bond, hoping some part of her could still hear him. Come back to me. You're safe. You're free. You don't have to fight anymore. The white wolf paused for just a heartbeat, confusion flickering in those strange eyes. Then someone in the crowd moved, just a small shift, but it was enough. Her head snapped toward the gathered wolves, and Darius's heart stopped as he recognized the look in her eyes. She saw them as threats. Saw 300 wolves as enemies who'd kept her caged. She was going to attack the pack. Everyone run! Elderthorn shouted, but it was too late. The white wolf leaped over Darius with impossible grace and launched herself into the crowd with a howl that promised blood. Chaos erupted. The white wolf tore through the crowd like a force of nature, not killing but scattering, snapping at warriors who tried to contain her, bowling over elders who shouted commands, her mismatched eyes wild with freedom and fury. Darius shifted back to human form, knowing his wolf would only escalate the violence. Do not harm her, he roared, his alpha command rippling through every pack member. Anyone who draws her blood answers to me. The warriors hesitated, caught between their instinct to protect the pack and their alpha's orders. The white wolf used their confusion to break through their lines, racing toward the forest with speed that shouldn't be possible. She'll get lost in the mountains, Maya cried out. She doesn't know the territory, doesn't know the dangers. Darius was already running. He shifted mid-stride, his black wolf eating up the distance between them with powerful strides. Behind him, he felt other wolves following, loyal warriors who would help contain Ariella without hurting her. He hoped. The white wolf was fast, but Darius knew these woods intimately. He took a shortcut through a ravine, bursting out ahead of her on a rocky outcropping. She skidded to a halt, lips peeling back in a snarl when she saw him blocking her path. Ariella, he sent through the bond again, pouring every ounce of warmth and safety he could into the connection. It's me. Your mate. You know me. For a moment, just one precious moment, he saw recognition flicker in those strange eyes. Saw something soften, something that might have been the girl he knew fighting her way back to the surface. Then a wolf burst from the trees behind her, Marcus, one of his beta warriors, trying to help hurt her back. The white wolf spun with a vicious snarl, perceiving the movement as an attack. She launched herself at Marcus with lethal intent. Darius intercepted her midair, tackling her sideways. They rolled across the rocky ground, a tangle of black fur and white, snapping jaws and raking claws. He was careful not to hurt her, but she showed no such restraint. Her fangs grazed his shoulder, drawing blood, her claws scoring lines across his ribs. "Please," he begged through the bond. "Please come back to me." The white wolf managed to throw him off with shocking strength. She stood over him, her muzzle inches from his throat, one perfect killing bite away from ending the Alpha King's reign. Their eyes met, amber and silver staring into storm gray, and something profound passed between them. The bond flared, golden and fierce, and Darius felt the exact moment Ariella began to fight back from inside. The white wolf's body went rigid. She backed away from him, shaking her massive head as if trying to dislodge something. A whine escaped her throat, confused, frightened, so different from the feral snarls of moments before. "That's it," Darius encouraged, slowly getting to his feet. "You're stronger than this. Take control. Show your wolf who's in charge." The white wolf collapsed, her body convulsing. Darius could feel through the bond what was happening, Ariella wrestling with her other half, two souls fighting for dominance in one body. It was a battle every shifter faced during their first transformation, but most had parents to guide them, had prepared their whole lives for this moment. Ariella had nothing but raw will and 22 years of suppressed strength. The shift reversed violently. Fur receded, bones cracked and reformed, and then Ariella was lying on the rocky ground in human form, gasping for air, her body covered in dirt and scratches. Darius shifted immediately and rushed to her side, not caring that they were both naked. He gathered her into his arms, feeling her trembling against him. "I've got you," he murmured into her hair. "You did it, Aria. You took control. You won. I almost killed you," she sobbed against his chest. "I couldn't stop her, couldn't think, there was just rage and fear and—" "Shoo. It's okay. First shifts are always rough, and yours was complicated by the binding." He held her tighter, breathing in her scent, wild honeysuckle and something uniquely her that made his wolf purr with satisfaction. "You did better than anyone could have expected." Marcus approached cautiously, carrying blankets. He kept his eyes averted as he handed them to Darius. "The pack's secure, my king. No serious injuries. Elder Kira says the binding is completely broken now." "Good. Tell everyone to give us space. We'll return when she's ready." Marcus nodded and disappeared back into the trees, leaving them alone under the stars. Ariella pulled back slightly, just enough to look up at Darius. Her eyes were still that striking combination of amber and silver, her wolf's eyes, now part of her even in human form. Tears tracked through the dirt on her cheeks, and he gently wiped them away with his thumb. "I heard you," she said quietly. "When you called to me through the bond. It was the only thing that kept me from completely losing myself." Her voice broke. "You saved me." "You saved yourself," he corrected. "I just reminded you who you are." She laughed weakly. "I don't even know who I am anymore. 22 years I thought I was human, broken, worthless. And now," she looked down at her hands, flexing fingers that had been claws moments ago. "Now I have a wolf. A powerful wolf. And a mate who's the Alpha King. It's too much, Darius. It's all too much. Then we'll take it slow." He wrapped the blanket around her shoulders, then claimed one for himself. "One day at a time. One moment at a time. Whatever you need." "What I need," she said, meeting his eyes with surprising intensity, "is the truth. All of it. Who was my mother? Why did your father really bring me here? What does the prophecy actually say?" Darius hesitated. The truth was complicated, dangerous, and would likely terrify her. But she deserved to know. "Your mother," he began carefully, "was named Lissa Moonwhisper. She was a hybrid, part wolf, part witch, part something even older that most shifters don't believe exists anymore." He watched Ariella's eyes widen. She was also the most powerful seer in 5 generations. And she predicted that her daughter, you, would either unite all shifter clans under one rule, ending centuries of territorial warfare. Or, Ariella whispered. Or awaken an ancient power that would destroy every pack in existence. He let the words hang in the air between them. My father found you in the ruins of a massacre. Your entire clan had been slaughtered, dozens of powerful wolves and witches, all dead in one night. The only survivor was you, a newborn wrapped in your mother's dying arms. She lived just long enough to beg my father to protect you, to keep you hidden until the time was right. Ariella's face had gone pale. Who killed them? No one knows. The wounds weren't from wolves or witches or any known creature. Something else came for your clan that night, something drawn by your birth. Darius pulled her closer, hating the fear in her eyes. My father believed the prophecy. Believed that your power would draw enemies from the shadows, that anyone who knew what you were would either try to kill you or use you. So he bound your wolf, suppressed your gifts, and raised you as human to keep you safe. Safe, she repeated bitterly. I was never safe. I was just, invisible. I know. And I'm sorry. If I'd known, if I'd understood what the bond meant sooner. You would have what? Defied your father? Broken the binding yourself? She shook her head. We were both victims of his fear, Darius. Both of us lost years we can never get back. The bond pulsed between them, and Darius felt her exhaustion, her confusion, her terror about what she'd just learned. But underneath it all was something else, a core of strength that had survived 22 years of suppression. I'm scared, she admitted. Scared of this prophecy. Scared of my wolf. Scared of, she looked up at him, vulnerable in a way that made his chest ache. Scared of what happens between us. This bond is so intense, Darius. I feel everything you feel. Want everything you want. How do I know what's real and what's just fate forcing us together? It was a fair question. One he'd been asking himself since the moment the bond had snapped into place. You don't, he said honestly. Not yet. The bond makes everything complicated, makes feelings amplified and immediate. But, he cupped her face gently, making sure she was looking at him. I can give you space to figure it out. I can court you properly, let you get to know me without the bond clouding everything. It'll be harder, fighting the pull will drive both our wolves crazy, but if that's what you need. No. The word came out firm, surprising them both. Ariella's hand came up to cover his where it rested against her cheek. No more distance. No more hiding. I've spent my whole life on the outside looking in, and I'm done with that. Her mismatched eyes blazed with determination. I want to know you, Darius. The real you. Not the alpha king everyone fears, but the man my wolf chose. And I want you to know me, all of me, even the broken parts. Darius's heart stuttered. There are no broken parts, Aria. Just pieces that haven't been properly seen yet. She smiled then, a real smile that transformed her entire face, making her breathtaking. And when she leaned in to kiss him, tentative and sweet and full of promise, Darius felt something click into place in his soul. This was right. This was always meant to be. The bond sang between them, golden and perfect, as the blood moon watched over their first kiss. They returned to the compound at dawn, walking side by side through the forest as the first rays of sunlight painted the sky golden pink. Darius had given Ariella his shirt, and she wore it like armor, her bare legs steady beneath her despite everything she'd been through. The pack was waiting. 300 wolves stood in formation in the main clearing, silent and watchful. At the front stood the elders, their faces unreadable. Behind them, warriors. Behind them, the families and unmated wolves. And off to one side, isolated and furious, stood Serafina and her northern contingent. Ariella's steps faltered. "They're here to reject me," she whispered. "To demand you choose someone else. Then they'll be disappointed." Darius took her hand, lacing their fingers together in a public claim that made several wolves gasp. "You're my mate. My Luna. And anyone who has a problem with that can challenge me for the right to lead." It was a dangerous proclamation. Alpha challenges often ended in death. No one moved. Elder Thorn stepped forward, his ancient face grave. For a long moment, he simply studied Ariella, and she forced herself to meet his gaze without flinching. "The binding is broken," he said finally. "The girl has her wolf. But that doesn't change the prophecy, my king. It doesn't erase the danger she represents to this pack." "Then we'll face that danger together," Darius said flatly. "As we've faced every other threat." "You don't understand." Kira emerged from the crowd, her silver eyes glowing in the early morning light. "The prophecy isn't just about her power, Alpha King. It's about what she is. What she's always been." She looked at Ariella with something between pity and awe. "I saw your wolf last night, girl. Saw those silver markings on her spine. Do you know what they mean?" Ariella shook her head mutely. "They're the mark of the first." Kira's voice carried across the silent clearing. "The bloodline that existed before the moon goddess divided us into packs. Before territories and hierarchies and all the rules we live by now. Your mother wasn't just a hybrid, she was a direct descendant of the original shifters. The ones who could take any form, command any element, whose power wasn't bound by pack loyalty or territorial limits." The implications hit Ariella like a physical blow. "That's impossible. Those are just legends. Legends based on truth." Kira moved closer, her expression intense. "The first were too powerful, too dangerous. They could challenge the moon goddess herself. So she scattered their bloodline, diluted it through generations until most shifters today carry barely a drop of that ancient power." She gestured to Ariella. "But your mother's clan concentrated it. Bred for it. Tried to bring back what was lost. And they succeeded, in you. That's why they were killed," Ariella breathed, pieces clicking into place with horrible clarity. "Someone didn't want that power to return. Multiple someones." Kira's smile was grim. "The night your clan was massacred, there were witnesses. Wolves who saw creatures they couldn't identify, things from the old stories that should no longer exist. They came for you specifically, drawn by your birth like moths to flame." Darius's hand tightened on hers. "And they'll come again. Once word spreads that she's awakened. They're already coming." The new voice made everyone spin. A stranger stood at the edge of the clearing, a tall, lean wolf with copper hair and eyes like frozen amber. He radiated power, old power, and his scent was wrong somehow. Foreign. Dangerous. Warriors immediately moved to intercept him, but he raised his hands in a gesture of peace. "Easy. I'm not here to fight." His gaze found Ariella, and something flickered in those strange eyes. "I'm here to warn her. My name is Kieran Ashford, Alpha of the Shadowpine Pack. And 3 days ago, my scouts intercepted a message being passed between the Eastern Territories." He pulled a rolled parchment from his coat, tossing it to Darius. "Read it. Then decide if you still want to parade your newfound mate in front of the entire shifter world." Darius unrolled the parchment, his face going stone cold as he read. Ariella watched the color drain from his features, watched his jaw clench with barely controlled fury. "What does it say?" she asked, though part of her didn't want to know. "It's a bounty." His voice was lethal quiet. 50,000 gold pieces for the girl bearing the mark of the first. Alive, preferably. Dead, acceptable. Issued by the Council of Seven. Silence crashed over the clearing like a wave. The Council of Seven, the shadowy organization that supposedly governed relations between all major pacts, though most believed them to be more myth than reality. If they were real, and if they wanted Ariella dead. Why? The question came out as a whisper. Why do they want me? Kieran's expression was sympathetic. Because you're a threat to their power. The council maintains control by keeping the pacts divided, territorial, constantly competing. But the prophecy says you could unite them, and that terrifies the council more than anything. He looked at Darius. They'll send everything they have. Assassins. Mercenaries. Entire packs who want that bounty. This compound will become a war zone. Then we fortify. Darius's voice carried absolute authority. Triple the patrols. Seal the borders. No one gets in or out without my express permission. You'd cage your entire pack to protect one girl? Seraphina's voice dripped venom as she finally spoke. Even one who might destroy us all? Watch your tongue, Darius growled. Or I'll remove it. Why? For speaking truth? Seraphina stalked forward, her perfect face twisted with rage and humiliation. You threw me aside for her, a human-raised mongrel with cursed blood. You've endangered every alliance we've built, made us targets for every bounty hunter in 5 territories, and for what? A bond you didn't even know existed until yesterday? Seraphina, Elder Morna tried to intervene. No. The Northern Alpha's daughter was shaking with fury. I've stayed silent long enough. This girl is poison. Her very existence invites death to our doorstep. The merciful thing, the right thing, would be to end this before it begins. Her hand dropped to the silver blade at her hip. Let me do it. Let me save this pack from the ruin she'll bring. The tension snapped like a breaking bone. Darius moved, but Ariella was faster. Her wolf surged forward with a snarl, and before anyone could react, she'd shifted, pure white fur and mismatched eyes and those strange silver markings blazing with power. The white wolf placed herself between Darius and Seraphina, lips peeled back in a warning that promised violence. Mine, Ariella's voice echoed through the bond, primal and possessive. My mate. Touch him and die. Seraphina's hand froze on her blade. For all her bravado, she wasn't stupid enough to attack an Alpha King's true mate. Stand down, Darius commanded, though Ariella could hear the pride in his voice through the bond. Both of you. Ariella shifted back, painfully aware that she was now completely naked in front of the entire pack. But she refused to show shame. Refused to cower. The council wants me dead, she said, her voice carrying despite her nakedness. And apparently half this pack agrees with them. So here's what's going to happen. She looked directly at Elder Thorn. You're going to tell me everything about my mother's clan. Every detail you know. Every secret you've kept. Girl, you can't just demand. I'm not a girl. Her eyes flashed amber and silver. I'm the last of the first. I'm your Alpha's true mate. And whether you like it or not, I'm going to be your Luna. She turned to Kieran. You came here to warn me. Why? What's your angle? Kieran's smile was approving. Smart wolf. My angle is survival. The council is corrupt, power-hungry, and they've been manipulating pack politics for decades. If you really can unite the territories, end their control, he shrugged. I want to be on the winning side. And if I can't? Then we're all dead anyway. He met her gaze steadily. But I'm betting you can. That wolf of yours, the way she emerged last night, the power radiating off her, that's not just first blood. That's something more. Something the council should be terrified of. Ariella looked at Darius, saw the fierce pride and determination in his eyes. felt the bond humming between them, strong and true. "Then I guess we have a war to prepare for," she said quietly. Darius smiled, sharp, dangerous, every inch the Alpha King. "Finally, something we agree on." He raised his voice to address the pack. "Anyone who wants to leave, go now. I won't stop you, won't hold it against you. But anyone who stays fights for her. Protects her. Accepts her as Luna. And anyone who betrays her," Kieran added casually, "answers to the Shadowpine pack as well. Consider that my oath of alliance, Alpha King." One by one, wolves began to kneel. Not all of them, Seraphina and her northern contingent remained standing, as did a handful of elders who still clung to the old prophecy. But the majority bent their knees, accepting Ariella as their future Luna. It should have felt like victory. Instead, Ariella felt the weight of every expectation, every fear, every hope settling onto her shoulders like chains. "Can I really do this?" she sent through the bond to Darius. His response was immediate, fierce, unwavering, "You already are." The attack came 3 nights later. Ariella woke to the sound of screaming and the acrid smell of smoke. She bolted upright in the bed Darius had given her, a room in the Alpha's wing, close enough that he could reach her in seconds, far enough to give her space to process everything. That space felt like a chasm now as explosions rocked the compound. She threw on clothes and ran into the hallway, nearly colliding with Maya, who was herding terrified pups toward the safe room. "What's happening?" "Mercenaries," Maya gasped. "Dozens of them. They breached the north wall with explosives." Another blast cut off her words, "Closer this time. You need to get to Darius. He's at the front lines and—" The ceiling above them groaned. Ariella grabbed Maya and the pups, shoving them through a doorway just as the corridor collapsed behind them in a shower of stone and timber. "Go!" Ariella commanded. "Get them to safety." She didn't wait for Maya's response. Her wolf was screaming inside her, desperate to reach their mate, to fight, to protect. She let the shift take her, smoother this time, more controlled, and the white wolf burst from the building into chaos. The compound was a war zone. Fires burned everywhere, casting dancing shadows across bodies, both mercenary and pack wolf. Warriors fought desperately against invaders who wielded silver weapons and wore armor designed specifically to kill shifters. And in the center of it all, surrounded by enemies, fought Darius. His black wolf was magnificent and terrifying, taking down mercenaries with brutal efficiency. But there were too many, and Ariella could see through the bond that he was tiring, that he'd taken multiple silver-laced wounds that burned like acid in his system. She launched herself into the fray with a howl that made warriors on both sides freeze. The white wolf was a blur of fur and fangs, tearing through mercenaries to reach her mate. The silver markings on her spine blazed with light, and where that light touched, enemies fell back screaming. "I'm here," she sent through the bond. "I've got you." Relief flooded from Darius, but also terror, not for himself, but for her. "Get out of here. They came for you, this is all for you." "Then they can have me," she snarled back. "After they go through both of us." They fought back to back, 2 wolves moving as one, the bond allowing them to anticipate each other's movements perfectly. For a moment, it felt like they might actually win. Then she saw him. A figure in black armor standing on the ruined north wall, watching the carnage with cold calculation. He was massive, bigger even than Darius, and the sword strapped to his back gleamed with runes that hurt to look at. When his eyes found her, they glowed red. "There," he bellowed, his voice carrying over the sounds of battle. "The girl. Take her alive, kill anyone who gets in the way." The mercenaries' tactics changed instantly. They stopped trying to kill and started trying to contain, forming a circle around Ariella and Darius, tightening it like a noose. "We need to run," Darius sent desperately. "Get you somewhere safe." "There is nowhere safe." Ariella looked around at her pack, at warriors dying to protect her, at families huddling in burning buildings, at the destruction her very existence had brought. This is my fault. All of it. Don't you dare. But guilt was a living thing inside her chest. Serafina had been right. The prophecy had been right. She was poison, death, ruin wrapped in white fur. The circle tightened. Silver nets dropped from above, specially designed traps that would hold even the strongest shifter. Darius dodged one, but Ariella wasn't fast enough. The net caught her, and the silver burned instantly, forcing her back to human form with a scream of agony. No. Darius shifted, reaching for her, and that moment of distraction cost him. The man in black armor moved with inhuman speed, appearing behind Darius and slamming something against his neck. Darius convulsed once and collapsed, unconscious before he hit the ground. Darius. Ariella fought against the net, ignoring the burning pain, but strong hands grabbed her from behind. Sleep now, little first, a voice whispered in her ear, and she felt the prick of a needle in her neck. The council has waited 22 years to meet you. Don't want to keep them waiting any longer. Darkness swallowed her vision, but not before she saw Kieran fighting his way toward them, saw Marcus fall with a silver blade in his chest, saw Maya's horrified face as she was dragged away. Saw Darius lying motionless in a pool of his own blood. Ariella woke to the sound of dripping water and the smell of earth and old stone. She was in a cell, ancient, carved from living rock, with bars that glowed with the same painful runes she'd seen on the black-armored man's sword. Her wrists were shackled with silver that burned constantly, keeping her too weak to shift. Awake. Good. A woman's voice, cultured and cold. I was beginning to worry we'd given you too much sedative. Ariella's vision cleared enough to see her visitor. The woman was stunning, ageless beauty with platinum hair and eyes like chips of ice. She wore robes of deep purple, and power radiated from her in waves that made Ariella's wolf whimper. Who are you? My name is Morgana Vale. I speak for the Council of Seven. She smiled, and it was the smile of a predator. Welcome to your new home, child. You'll be staying with us for quite some time. Where's Darius? Ariella's voice cracked. What did you do to him? The Alpha King lives. For now. Morgana circled the cell slowly, studying Ariella like a fascinating specimen. We couldn't very well kill him, that would unite the packs against us, and we prefer to operate in the shadows. But he's been contained. Told that you're dead. That your body was incinerated in the attack. Her smile widened. He's probably destroying his compound in grief as we speak. The words were a knife to Ariella's heart. She could feel the bond, stretched thin and screaming, but she couldn't reach through it. Something about this place was blocking their connection, making Darius feel impossibly far away. Why? The question came out broken. Why not just kill me? Isn't that what your bounty said? Oh, killing you would be such a waste. Morgana knelt to be at eye level with Ariella. Do you know what you are, child? What you could become with the proper guidance? I'm the last of the first, Ariella said tiredly. Kieran explained. Kieran knows nothing. Morgana's laugh was musical and cruel. The first weren't just powerful shifters. They were gods walking among mortals. They could reshape reality with a thought, command life and death with a word. The moon goddess herself feared what they might become, so she cursed them, bound their power to bloodlines that would weaken with each generation. She reached through the bars, gripping Ariella's chin painfully. But your mother was brilliant. She found a way to break that curse, to concentrate all that scattered power into a single vessel. You. And when your wolf fully awakens, when you learn to access everything you're capable of, her eyes gleamed with avarice. You could make the Council of Seven into the Council of Gods. Horror washed over Ariella. You want to use me? Use you, train you, shape you into what you were always meant to be. Morgana released her chin. The prophecy says you'll either unite the packs or destroy them. We're betting on destroy, because once you've eliminated every alpha who opposes us, once you've burned away the old order, we'll rebuild from the ashes. With you as our weapon. I'll never help you. You will. Morgana stood, brushing invisible dust from her robes. Because we have something you want very badly. Your mate's life. Cooperate, and Darius Blackthorn lives out his days believing you died a hero. Resist, her smile turned vicious. And we'll send him your heart in a silver box. After we make you watch him die, of course. Ariella lunged at the bars, ignoring the burning pain. You. Save your strength, child. Training begins tomorrow. Morgana turned to leave, then paused. Oh, and don't bother trying to reach him through the bond. These cells were designed specifically to contain the first. No power in or out. As far as Darius knows, you're gone forever. Then she was gone, her footsteps echoing away into darkness. Ariella slumped against the cold stone wall, silver burns throbbing, the bond stretched so thin it was barely a whisper. Somewhere out there, Darius thought she was dead. Thought he'd failed to protect her. And she had no way to tell him otherwise. For the first time since her wolf had awakened, Ariella let herself break. She curled into a ball on the filthy floor of her cell and sobbed, for Darius, for her pack, for the future they'd never have. For the darkest truth of all, Serafina had been right. Everyone would have been better off if Ariella had never been born. 3 weeks in the cell felt like 3 years. Ariella had marks up and down her arms from Morgana's training, sessions where the council member tried to force her wolf to surface through pain and coercion. But Ariella's wolf had retreated deep inside, traumatized and refusing to emerge while separated from their mate. The bond was still there, thin as spider silk, but Ariella clung to it like a lifeline. Some nights, when the guards changed shifts and the runes weakened slightly, she could feel Darius, his grief, his rage, his absolute devastation. It was agony knowing he thought her dead, but at least it meant he was alive. That had to be enough. Again, Morgana commanded, her voice echoing off the stone walls of the training chamber where they dragged Ariella that morning. Call your wolf. Show me the power you're hiding. I can't. Ariella's voice was hoarse from screaming. Her body was covered in fresh burns from the silver implements Morgana used to encourage cooperation. She won't come. Then perhaps we need better motivation. Morgana gestured, and guards dragged in a figure, a young wolf, barely more than a teenager, beaten and terrified. Ariella's heart stopped. She recognized him. Liam, one of the Moonfang pups who'd always been kind to her. We've been collecting your packmates, Morgana said conversationally. Picking off stragglers, capturing warriors who ventured too far from the compound. This one was particularly easy, wandered right into our trap looking for you. She smiled. Kill him, or I will. Choose quickly. No. Ariella struggled against her chains. He's just a child, he has nothing to do with this. Everything has to do with this. Morgana drew a silver blade. Your power is fueled by emotion, by desperation. So I'm going to give you a choice, unleash your wolf and kill him yourself, proving you can control your power, or watch me torture him slowly while you remain helpless. Either way, he dies. But one way proves you're worth keeping alive. Liam was crying now, looking at Ariella with desperate, trusting eyes. Luna, he whispered. Please. Don't let them. The blade descended, and something inside Ariella shattered. Not broke, shattered. Like a dam exploding, like reality itself tearing open. Power erupted from her in a shockwave that threw everyone in the chamber against the walls. The silver chains binding her melted like wax. The runes meant to contain her flickered and died. And Ariella's wolf surged forward, not feral this time, but perfectly controlled, merged with her human consciousness in a way that should have taken years to achieve. She shifted in a blaze of white light, and the wolf that emerged was different. Larger. The silver markings on her spine were glowing like molten metal, and her eyes, both of them, burned with power that made even Morgana step back in fear. Enough, Ariella's voice resonated through the chamber, no longer just in her own head but somehow speaking directly into everyone's minds. No more. No more pain. No more death. She turned to the guards holding Liam and they scattered, terrified. She shifted back to human, not caring about her nakedness, and caught the boy before he collapsed. "Can you walk?" she asked gently. Liam nodded, trembling. What are you?" Something they should have left buried. She looked at Morgana, who was pressed against the wall, her earlier confidence completely gone. "You wanted to see my power? Congratulations. You've awakened something you can't control. The council will. The council will do nothing." Ariella felt something click into place inside her, felt the full weight of what she was settling onto her shoulders. "Because I'm done being anyone's weapon. I'm done being afraid." She closed her eyes, reaching for the bond, really reaching, pouring everything she'd just awakened into it. The runes had dampened her connection, but they were just magic. And she was beginning to understand that she was something older than magic, something primal that bent reality to her will. The bond blazed to life like a supernova. "Darius," she sent, hoping against hope that he could hear her. "I'm alive. I'm coming home." The response was immediate: shock, disbelief, desperate hope, and rage so profound it nearly knocked her over. "Ariella?" His mental voice was broken, raw. They said you were dead. I felt you die." "They lied. They wanted you to think I was gone so I'd be easier to control." She opened her eyes, fixing Morgana with a stare that promised retribution. "But I'm done being controlled." "Where are you?" "Burned half the territory looking for your body." Coordinates flooded through the bond, along with images. He was in the mountains, in the ruins of what looked like an old temple. "I was going to end it, Aria. Couldn't live without you. But if you're alive..." "I'm alive. And I'm bringing our packmate home." She looked at Liam. "Can you shift?" The boy nodded shakily. "Then run. Follow the bond, it'll lead you to our alpha. Tell him I'm coming." She smiled fiercely. "And tell him to gather everyone loyal to us. Because we're going to war." Liam shifted and bolted, the door guards too terrified of Ariella to stop him. Morgana had recovered some of her composure. "You can't escape. The council has armies, has magic older than your bloodline, has nothing I'm afraid of anymore." Ariella felt her wolf rise to the surface, felt the power coursing through her veins like liquid starlight. "You wanted to make me a weapon? Fine. But I choose who I point myself at." She shifted, and this time the transformation was accompanied by an explosion of power that shattered the walls of the chamber. Stone crumbled, runes died, and suddenly Ariella was standing in open air 3 stories above the ground. Below, she saw the council's fortress, a sprawling complex built into a mountainside, heavily guarded, supposedly impregnable. She also saw the cells. Dozens of them. And caught the sense of other prisoners. Other pack wolves. Her pack wolves. "How many?" Darius's voice was sharp through the bond. "How many did they take?" Ariella extended her senses, using abilities she didn't know she had until this moment. 15. Maybe 20. All alive, all terrified. "Can you get them out?" Ariella looked down at the fortress, at the guards scrambling in panic, at Morgana shouting orders that no one was listening to because they were all staring at the white wolf standing impossible in midair. She smiled, feeling her power gather around her like a storm. "Watch me." She dove back into the fortress, but this time not as a prisoner. As a force of nature. Her wolf tore through corridors, following scents, while her human mind directed the chaos. Doors exploded open at her approach. Chains melted. Guards who tried to stop her found themselves thrown aside by invisible force. She found Marcus first, chained and beaten but alive. Then Maya, who sobbed with relief. Then warrior after warrior, pup after pup, all the packmates who'd been taken as leverage against her compliance. "Follow me," she commanded, her voice somehow carrying to all of them at once. "Stay close and don't stop running." They burst from the fortress like a flood, 24 wolves racing behind their Luna as alarms blared and the council's forces mobilized too slowly to stop them. Ariella led them into the mountains, following the bond like a compass pointing home. Behind them, she heard Morgana screaming orders, heard the council's armies giving chase. She didn't care. Because ahead, still miles away but getting closer with every step, she felt him. Her mate. Her alpha. Her Darius. "I'm coming," she sent, pouring all her love and determination through the bond. "Hold on. I'm coming home." "Then come fast, Aria," he replied, and she felt his wolf rising, felt his power gathering in response to hers. "Because we have a war to start." The white wolf howled, not in despair this time, but in triumph. And behind her, her pack answered, their voices joining hers in a song of defiance that echoed across the mountains. They'd taken everything from her. Her childhood. Her identity. Her freedom. But they couldn't take her pack. Couldn't take her mate. Couldn't take the power that was finally, fully hers to command. The darkest hour had passed. Now came the dawn. They met at the ruins of the temple just as the sun broke over the mountains. Ariella saw him first, a massive black wolf standing atop the crumbled stone steps, surrounded by what remained of the Moonfawn pack. Warriors, families, even some of the elders who doubted her. All of them battered, exhausted, but alive. And when Darius's eyes locked onto hers, the bond exploded with such intensity that both of them shifted involuntarily. They collided in human form, his arms crushing her against him, her hands fisting in his hair. He was shaking, this powerful, unbreakable Alpha King was trembling as he held her. "I thought I'd lost you," he choked out against her neck. "Thought I'd failed you." "I was going to." "I know." She pulled back just enough to cup his face, seeing the devastation written in every line. He looked like he'd aged years in 3 weeks. "I know, and I'm sorry. But I'm here now. We're all here." Behind her, the rescued packmates were being mobbed by relieved family members. Maya was crying in her son's arms. Marcus was already arguing with other warriors about defensive positions. Liam was being fussed over by his parents who thought him dead. It should have been a moment of pure relief. Instead, Ariella felt the earth tremble beneath her feet. "They're coming," Kieran announced, appearing from the tree line with his Shadowpine wolves. "The Council's forces. I'd estimate 500 fighters, maybe more. They'll be here within the hour. Let them come." Darius's voice was granite and fury. He hadn't released Ariella, kept one arm locked around her waist like he'd never let go again. "We end this today." "My king," Elder Thorn approached cautiously. "Our forces are depleted. We lost over 100 warriors in the initial attack, and those who remain are exhausted. The council has numbers, fresh troops, and weapons designed specifically to kill us." He looked at Ariella with something that might have been respect. "Unless our Luna has more surprises in store?" Ariella felt all eyes turn to her. Felt the weight of expectation, of hope, of desperation. These wolves had suffered because of her. The least she could do was fight for them. I have power, she said carefully. More than I understand. But I've only had it for a few hours, and I don't know if it's enough to. It will be. Seraphina's voice cut through the crowd, and everyone turned in shock. The Northern Alpha's daughter approached slowly, her perfect face haggard, her clothes torn. Behind her limped a handful of Northern wolves, all bearing fresh wounds. Seraphina? Darius's tone was wary. What are you doing here? Surviving. She stopped a respectful distance away, her eyes on Ariella. The council attacked my territory 2 days after they took your mate. Said we were harboring sympathizers and that the Northern Pack needed to be taught a lesson about loyalty. Her voice cracked. They killed my father. Burned our ancestral grounds. We barely escaped with our lives. Ariella's chest tightened with sympathy despite their history. I'm sorry. Don't be. Seraphina's laugh was bitter. I was wrong about you. Wrong about everything. The council doesn't want to destroy just you, they want to destroy anyone who threatens their control. And a united shifter world under a true first? She shook her head. That terrifies them more than anything. So you're here to help? Darius's skepticism was evident. I'm here to survive. And maybe, Seraphina looked at Ariella with something that might have been hope. Maybe to see if the prophecy is real. If she really can unite us. Before Ariella could respond, a howl echoed across the valley. Not a wolf howl, something else. Something that made every shifter present bare their teeth in instinctive fear. They're here, Kieran said grimly. And they brought their pets. Ariella looked down into the valley and her blood ran cold. The council's army was massive, hundreds of mercenaries and enslaved wolves advancing in formation. But at the front of the force marched creatures from nightmares. Twisted things that might have once been wolves but had been warped by dark magic into something monstrous. Their eyes glowed red, their bodies were covered in the same painful runes that had lined Ariella's cell, and they radiated wrongness. Bloodbound, Kira breathed, appearing at Ariella's side. The pack which looked horrified. The council has been creating bloodbound warriors. Wolves they've tortured and corrupted until there's nothing left but obedience and hunger. Can they be saved? Ariella asked. No. Kira's expression was grim. The kindest thing we can do is end their suffering. At the front of the army, Morgana Vale stood tall, her purple robes whipping in an unnatural wind. Beside her stood the man in black armor from the compound attack, and 5 other figures radiating similar power. The Council of 7. All of them. Here to ensure Ariella never left these mountains alive. Ariella Moonwhisper. Morgana's voice carried across the valley, magically amplified. You have something that belongs to us. Surrender yourself, and we'll allow your packmates to live as slaves. Resist, and we'll paint these mountains red with their blood. Don't even think about it, Darius growled, pulling her closer. Ariella looked at her pack, at warriors ready to die for her, at families clutching their children, at Seraphina's desperate hope and Kieran's calculating loyalty. At Darius, her mate, her anchor, the wolf who'd chosen her even when it meant losing everything. She thought about 22 years of being invisible. Of being told she was worthless. Of watching from the shadows while life happened around her. She was done being invisible. I have a better idea, she called back, her voice somehow matching Morgana's volume. The power inside her was responding to her will, amplifying her words. You wanted to see what the first could do? You wanted to weaponize my power? She stepped away from Darius, ignoring his protest, and walked to the edge of the temple ruins. The silver markings on her spine, visible even in human form now, began to glow. Let me show you what happens when you cage something meant to be free. She shifted, and the transformation was accompanied by a pulse of pure power that rippled across the valley. The white wolf that emerged was massive now, easily twice the size of any normal shifter, with markings that blazed like captured lightning. But that wasn't what made the council's army falter. It was the other wolves. Every shifter on the mountain, Moonfang, Shadowpine, Northern, felt something click into place. Felt their wolves recognize something primal and absolute in Ariella's presence. Not dominance, not force, but connection. Like she was somehow touching the wild heart that lived in all of them, the part that existed before packs and territories and rules. The part that was free. Brothers and sisters, Ariella's voice echoed in every shifter's mind simultaneously.